The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are speakers plus authors informing the audience. They do not reflect or represent views and opinions held by this podcaster. Due to the nature of broadcasting this podcast, it may contain a copyrighted entity of a person. This podcaster does not own any rights to this music and their content. This podcaster cannot be held accountable for any copyrighted content. This channel is a messenger and sharer of information and strives to verify, but not warrant, the accuracy of copyrights or completeness of the information. If there is a complaint about something, whether the content is being used incorrectly, please contact the podcaster directly before making a copyright claim. Any infringement was not done on purpose and will be rectified to all parties' satisfaction. Everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Next Chapter of Sports with your host Tiago, along with Francisco, on this aspiring but also amazing podcast.
Yeah, what's up, guys? It's great to be back to the Next Chapter of Sports. We've had a lot of incredible guests, and right now we have another incredible guest, right, Augie?
That is absolutely right, Francisco. We've had amazing guests throughout the course of these last couple of episodes. We just want to say thank you to El Profe Bracamontes, Omar Ramos, and we have someone very special coming to us from Miami también. Ladies and gentlemen and everybody else, today on the Next Chapter of Sports podcast, we have someone who knows all around sports in the city, as I like to call the vibrant city of Miami, whether it's on the sidelines in a Inter-Miami game or covering the Miami Marlins under the lights and living the dream, working with Hispanic Sports Media. Y hoy, señoras y señores, la tenemos en el próximo capítulo de Deportes. Ladies and gentlemen, y todos y cada uno de ustedes, let's give a warm welcome to Valentina Ricci. Val, ¿cómo estás? And welcome.
Hey guys, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to get into all of this sports because honestly, it's been a couple of weeks for sports, if you ask me.
So, first things first, we got to get right into it. How have you been feeling these past couple of days? Like, how has work? How's everything been?
I mean, I've been feeling great. I mean, I was telling you off camera that, Miami's weather has been compliant lately. It's a very hot city. So the past couple of weeks have been great, nice weather to go to the beach, to be outside, because when summer gets here, I know it's time to hit the beach and all that, but it gets so hot that you can barely breathe outside. So for now, spring is, the best time for me to be here in Miami. But yeah, everything's been fine. Honestly, like I said, enjoying the weather, enjoying these nice days, to be outside, especially for sports, because when you're outside, you want, clear skies, you want, not crazy weather. So it's been great. It's thanks.
So now before we get into like your career and everything being able to do throughout your career, I want to start at the beginning. Can you speak a little bit to like your childhood and what it was like growing up?
Yeah, well, actually, it's funny because being a sports journalist, everyone like the first thing that they ask me is like, oh, who your parents follow, like who your family support. My family does not watch sports. Like my immediate family, mom, dad, sister, they do not watch sports for their life. So it was just literally me one day. I just sat down. I was watching the 2014 World Cup because I before that I wasn't really, I liked football, like soccer, all of that, but I wasn't really like following soccer as I obviously do now. And I saw the first game with Brazil, and I saw Marcelo score that old goal. And for me, that like kind of like marked me, and I was like, who is that guy? Why would he score the first World Cup goal being an own goal? So I started following him, and I saw that he was a Real Madrid player. So that's why I became a Real Madrid fan, and since then I started following, soccer fully every season, sit down, started like learning and watching everything I could learn. And then I think that from there, I just started, following sports. And when I moved to Miami, then I started to follow, all the sports that this city has because you go crazy. I started to like, do my research lately, like the past year. I'd say that I actually sat down to study them, and my head, I don't know how my head is still the size that it is because I've had so
Mm.
much information in my head that people are like, oh, why don't you follow this, why don't you follow that? And I'm like, I humanly cannot. Like, I would love to, but I humanly can't. So growing up, I just started being a soccer fan on my own. Like, I will, be the only one sitting down. You're just like, oh, I can't tonight. It's Champions League, it's Tuesday, I can't move. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, no, you all don't understand. Like, I need to be here today to watch this soccer game. Same thing with like on the weekends with La Liga and all of that. So I started, also my family is Italian, so my cousins and I will follow the Serie A. So we will be like, how can you be a Real Madrid fan? You have to be an Inter fan. You have to be a Juve fan, stuff like that. So growing up, I think that in my household, I was the only one who watch sports. So honestly, my passion will be within me because I will be like, oh my God, mom, did you see that Neymar is gonna leave Barcelona? And
Mhm.
she will be like, wow, that's wow. I mean, is it that good or bad? And I'm like, that's huge. And then she's like, okay, great for you, I guess. So honestly, growing up for me was just like sports was my thing. Like they would be like, oh yeah, that's Valentina and her sports. Like just let her be. So honestly, it was just a me thing growing up.
And you said
So
Real Madrid is your only favorite team, or are there like other favorite teams too, like national team or something, or another teams?
well, yeah, I'd say that Real Madrid is my top one, my favorite one, but I really grew to love Liverpool as well.
Oh,
When
okay.
Klopp took over, for me, that was just a masterpiece of work that Klopp did in that club. So I was like, I fell in love with Liverpool and everything, even though Real Madrid and Liverpool have like,
Oh
their
yeah.
rivalry there. But I just love Liverpool as a club and what they did with the players that they had at hand. Like to get to their full potential, go like win the Champions League with the league after 33 years. Insane. So I would say that I have Real Madrid and Liverpool as my two favorite teams. I like Juve as well for the Serie A. For the Italians, I'd say Juve. And well, my national team, the La Vino Tinto for Venezuela, it's you have to learn how to love it because they give you the greatest joy, but most of the time you're just disappointed. And honestly, most of the time it's not because of them. I'd say that they don't have the best access either to grow and be the best players as other countries have it. But at the end there's no excuse. So like it's just bad management, and like sometimes players don't care. They're unprepared because they don't have enough players with talent. They leave early so they don't get to play to La Vino Tinto. So like getting to a World Cup right now, it's they're trying. They've been getting better throughout the years, like recently, as you guys saw, I don't know, La Copa America, that for me, Venezuela got
Oh
super
yeah.
far. Like I wouldn't even expect them. Like it hurts to say it, but they surpassed my expectations. Right? I never thought that they would like get to where they got, and they're still a work in progress. But I still have them here, and also Italy because of my family. I will support Italy all the time, even though they also let me down the past three World Cups. I think two or
Oh yeah.
three. I think
Yeah,
two.
they didn't qualify 2018, and then 2022, I think they didn't qualify either.
Yeah. So yeah, I was like, well, I would like I watched the last two World Cups. Like, I mean, whoever wins wins. I guess I root for everybody because at this point I don't really, I was just like I'm just gonna enjoy it. Honestly, that was a good thing because I only got to enjoy. I wasn't nervous. I was like, oh my God,
Oh yeah.
I'm not my team. I was just like enjoying all the, and like I would watch all the games and all this. I'm like, I don't really care who wins. I'm just gonna celebrate. That's it. Like for the love of sports, I guess. But yeah, I'd say that those are like my principal, like my teams right now.
Yeah, I feel that same pain that you said for Venezuela for la selección por Mexico, but we can get further than that in soccer world because I get talked about that, but we can talk about that later on.
And I think what's interesting to know, everybody, is Val es 100% venezolana, papa. She's a Venezuelan supporter all the way. And the reason why I say this, and I say this in a proud, proud way, because of my team Pachuca, we have El Rey Salomón Rondon. And also, not only that, when I saw it in La Copa America in 2024, that surprised everybody in that group stage. Even
Mhm.
I even said it, Francisco, Mexico was not going to get past that group stage for sure
Uh-oh. We
because
don't have to talk about that. We don't have to talk
oh,
about that.
hey, but we're gonna leave it out for the right now, but we're gonna definitely include it in soccer world. It's interesting to see how Val was saying a little bit about La Vinotinto and also talking about like how she grew up. Like you were like the only person ever out of your family for to get interest into sports. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How did that even happen?
I just literally like sat down and just started watching, soccer and then following them and just fell in love with the sport. Like I've always been like into sports. I played sports in high school, like I would always be like trying to be active, like playing tennis. Also, I love tennis. So all of the sports, like I will always be, active and stuff, but I never like sat down to actually watch sports except for the World Cup because the World Cup just absorbs you even if you don't watch any sports. So I would just sit down and actually enjoy it. And then I remember clearly, this was like, I don't know, maybe like 2010, that I was looking at I was watching TV and they were like covering, I think, the first game of the World Cup or something like that. And then I saw this reporter, I think it was on CNN. And I remember I was watching it with my dad and I'm like, that is so cool. Like, I would love to do that one day. And he's like, well, you have to be a journalist for that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, bet. Let's do it. Like I want to be there. So yeah, I think that was it for me. I started following sports on my own. I fell in love with them, and here we are.
Going to now like starting your career, I saw you attended a lot of different universities to start develop your craft. You attended Miami-Dade College and Sport Management School, as well as most recently the Florida International University School of Journalism and Mass Communications. Most people like I think would do like one or maybe two at the most, but you did like three. So I was like really surprised. Can you talk a little bit about the backstory behind that? Why you chose three? Was it to further develop your craft? What was the reason behind attending like three different programs?
Yeah, so well, I like to study. In my family, everyone has a degree also, so like studying, it's very, encouraged in my family. But honestly, I love to study. I love to sit down, learn new things, read. I love to read. So I was like, what's the better way to, get prepared as possible? So I started college, yeah, like back in 2017, I think. And I was like, okay, if I want to do a journalist, if you want to work for CNN, you want to work for ESPN, you need to be prepared. Even though, like, nowadays, I think that a degree does not guarantee anything, to be honest with you. It's just like maybe something that you just say, like, hey, I have a degree. And, people are like, okay, so I believe that you know how to do your job. And that's not necessarily true. But honestly, for me, it was just like a personal goal that I want. I was like, oh, I want my bachelor. I want this big certificate with my name on it. So I started college in, like I said, 2017 in mass communications. I graduated with an AA with associates in arts, and then I decided that I wanted to go to Spain to try and finish my bachelor's over there.
Mhm.
And I lived in Spain for 4 years. Unfortunately, I don't know why, documents here and there from Venezuela, from here over there, it didn't work for me. It's a long story, but like, let me skip that to say that at the end, it didn't work. So what I could do was I did this sort of like, it's not a master's because for a master's you need a bachelor, but it's sort of like that because it's in Spain, it's kind of the levels of education are kind of different. But let's say it's just like kind of a certificate in sports journalism. So I was okay, might as well, if I can't finish my bachelor's, then I get something, related in my field. So I did this like program for a year. It was great because, being in Spain, you have like soccer, you live soccer, you breathe soccer, even if you don't want to. So I was there, I did this program, sports journalism. It was great as well. Since I was there, I was like, okay, I need to finish my bachelor's. It's like a goal for me. Like I need to do this and then I'll figure it out later, but I need to like finish my bachelor's. So I was like, okay, if I want to do that, then I need to go back to Miami. And that's what I did after 4 years. I got the pandemic over there. So I wasted an entire year being over there. So I came back 2023. Yeah, like the end of 2023. I had to wait a year to finish, everything, to fix everything, to go to school again. So I started again on January to get my bachelor. So hopefully, I'll be done in a year and a half. But yeah, for me, studying is like super important, and because I like it too. I like to study.
Yeah, that's where you and me are separate. I don't like studying at all, but it's important. But now transitioning to your first opportunity, I saw you had your first opportunity as a radio host with Pangea FM. So you can talk about that first experience and the first things you like learned from that, whether it be like the workload, the type of work as you were starting in the industry.
Yeah, so actually I moved from Venezuela to Miami the end of 2015, right? So while I was fixing all my documents, all my papers to start school, they were like, "Oh, it's better for you to wait a year because then you'll be in state, it's cheaper, all of that, so you have to wait." And I'm like, "Okay, fine, I'll wait a year." I was 17, so I was like, "Might as well, right?" And then I had just finished high school, so I was like, "Okay, what can I do in a year?" Because I just didn't want to get just a job and wait. I was like, why can I learn? Right. And then I came across this radio station, and they were giving like broadcasting classes and all of that. So I was like, okay, that looks cool. Let me do that. And I was gonna do it like just out of fun, like just because it was like somewhat related to what I wanted to do. And I fell in love with the radio. Like honestly, it was such a fun experience. I had my classes with them, and then since they're their own radio station, they were like, "Do you want to stay and try to have like a show with other like people?" Well, yeah, sure, absolutely. So I just stayed there for a year while I started classes, and it was great. Like they taught me how to how to talk properly, how to control your tone, your words, everything. Like how to flow your reporting basically, right? So it was pretty fun because I think it's kind of different when you have a camera in front of you, because in the radio that there's millions of people listening to you, but you don't see them. You can feel, oh, I can't say anything. Maybe I make a mistake or two, but it doesn't matter because they're not looking at me, they're just listening to me, which is it was kind of like a hard transition for me to now be in front of a camera, because you have to be very smooth, you have to control your hand, your gestures, all of that. So I have to like do like 2 3 takes, because I'm moving my hand too much, I'm doing this. So what, like, why am I directing planes? Like, I'm not doing that. I'm trying to trying to report here. Or I will go back and forth, and I'm like, why am I dancing back and forth? Like, this is not. So I will have to like go back again and do it. In the radio, you don't do that. Like, you're just free to move, be however you want. You can look however you want. It doesn't matter. You can show up just in your PJs and nobody would know. You just do your job. You do your job perfectly, and then that's it. Nobody would know. It was such a great experience. Like, I'd say that it really helped me to create like a strong base for me to start reporting and broadcasting. For that year that I waited, it was perfect for me to actually like open the doors for me in the broadcasting world.
Let me tell you, I think Val and I are so similar in a way because I started college in 2017. I started radio, but a year later in 2018. And it's interesting to see like how with radio you gain that experience and you also get the opportunity to show your voice, to show who you are, to show like your image out there. So I just want to reiterate para mis hermanos latinos también que nos están escuchando, aquí estamos con una venezolana, papá. Aquí se sabe perfectamente. But just to go up on a little bit about what Val is saying, pretty much, we're so similar in that case because and look at Francisco right now. He's also doing radio, so shout out to you, my
Oh,
man.
that's cool. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
I'm doing a little bit of it on like on Fox WR, man, just talking about the Bears and the White Sox. But like Augie's saying, it's a really good way to not have that pressure of like seeing what you're wearing or whatever the case may be, and seeing like as we were talking before the show, if your lighting is good or not, you can just like have your PJs or whatever the case may be, like you were saying, Val, and just like show your enthusiasm and talking about sports. So I think it's a really cool opportunity, like you guys were saying. But now going off to like your transition still in broadcasting, but now as a radio broadcaster with Latinos FM. So you talk about that role, how you're still staying in the radio world, but now as a radio broadcaster with Latinos FM.
Yeah, so I had this opportunity when I was in Spain for a little bit. It was a few months. Also, it was right freshly after the pandemic, right? So everything started to slowly go back to normal because it was very different over there than here in the US. Like over there in Spain, everything stopped. I had like 4 or 5 months that I didn't go out of my apartment if it wasn't just to go to the supermarket and then come back. So like everything started to, go back to its normal pace. And then I started to like do some videos about like sport because I was like, okay, might as well. I'm here like between these four walls. Like I need to do something, right? And then I started to like do TikToks and, just for fun, to be honest. Because I was like, okay, might as well. And I started doing like TikToks about sports and my Instagram and all that. And then this radio saw my content, and which is like a factor now that I think about it, that repeats later on, because you never know. Like a lot of people like ask me like, oh, how do you get like there, how do you get this opportunity, how do you get all of that? And then honestly it was just me being silly on social media, like, to be honest with you. So I just started to do this like content and stuff the way I wanted it. It's just like sit down and be like, hey, so Bayern Munich just won this Champions League, and then they like went through everybody like a bulldozer, like they just, and then I just, talk like that. It's just however I wanted it. They saw my content and then we're like, okay, like we saw your content, we like it. Would you like to do like a segment in sports? Do you like to like be here and just talk about like La Liga a little bit? Also like in the Valencia FC, because I was living in Valencia at the time. So they were like, do you want to like cover the sports a little bit? And I'm like, sure. So I had like a 15 minutes, because Francisco, yeah, and also Augie, when you work at the radio, having 15 minutes is like an hour and 20 minutes. Like
Oh yeah, for sure.
it's so long.
Mm-hmm.
So so I had this opportunity for a few months, and then I had to leave it because time and my schedule didn't fix with it anymore. But I had those couple of months as well, so I tried radio in Spain as well. So it was really fun too. I got to like explore that a little bit more, being over there, how it works. It works a bit differently than here, but it's basically the same thing. So I was like, got back to it, like touch base a little bit with radio while I was over there.
And while you were in Spain, were you able to attend a Real Madrid game at all, or no?
Sadly, no. And I do not have an excuse for that, because if I were listening to myself, I would have been like, how? You were literally there for 4 years. But honestly, every time that I would, think about it, every time that I would like, oh yeah, let me get the tickets, it will be sold out. Like you have to buy the tickets like with a lot of anticipation, because when they go to Mestalla in Valencia, everybody wants to go, and you have to be on top of it. And sadly, it was like a couple of like rough years for me. So I was like, every time that I would think about it, I'm like sold out. So I'm like, okay, fine. And then I tried to see them when I went to Madrid, when I went to Barcelona as well, but nothing ever, nothing ever clocked for me. So sadly, no. I went to see the stadiums though. Like I went to do the tours. I went to obviously Santiago Bernabeu. I went to the Valencia a couple of times, which is I think the oldest stadium in Spain, which is really cool. So yeah, I got to visit the stadiums, not watch a game. Sadly, I still do not forgive myself for that, right? But my time will come, I'm sure of that. But when I was there, I just went to visit the stadiums because I was like, okay, might as well, I'm here, right? I'm not gonna wait for a game. I just go.
And now, like talking about your next role that you had a complete change of pace with your new role as a sports reporter with Para Entrenadores. So can you talk about how that role went and how like your time as a broadcaster in radio prepared you for that role?
This was a little bit more like writing articles and reporting as in written press, I'd say. Well, not press, but like reading content. So they reached out to me because they had this, this guy, he reached out to me and he was like, hey, so I have this page and it's dedicated to the coaches, and management and all of that. So it was a bit different, a different angle for me to take on. Actually, yeah, you talk to the coaches, you see what they do, but everybody dies for the players, right? And the team. And, everybody, the focus is on that. But it was a completely different angle because I got to do a lot of interviews for different coaches all around Latin America and Spain as well. So also for women in soccer as well. So it was a completely different angle for me to take on. And it was really fun because I got to learn also how to do written interviews, how to the questions, because when you're live, when you're like in video and you're talking to the person, it goes smoothly because you can hop from one subject to another. You get the tone of the person, but when it's written down, you have to be really concise because you need the information to be as clear as possible to get your information for either an article or for like to get a full interview. So I guess I got that experience as well, writing, and then I hopped also to write a few articles about like tactics in soccer as well. So that really gave me another angle that now I also use for broadcasting and all of that, because it was a different thing to take on, and I really appreciate that because it gave me a completely different point of view on what happens that it's not the usual that people look for.
And like you were talking about in the interviews that you were doing with like players or stuff like that, like you said, you had to also work on tone. Do you think your time as a broadcaster, like you were saying before, like learning about tone, about keeping your pace, do you think that also prepared you for those moments when you had to do interviews and make sure what tone to use and what questions you were doing?
You have to be very precise with your words. You have to be as clear as possible. You can't take forever asking a question. For example, I'd say in the NBA, you have a very short amount of time. You get one question, if any, and you have to be very clear, very concise, because sometimes, they're not in the mood. Sometimes they're not there for a long time. Sometimes they've been asked the same question many times. So you have to know how to rephrase those, because obviously for your media, for your team, I know that you have been asked that question 1,000 times, but I need it for me and for myself and for my content and, all the people that are counting on me to get this information.
Mhm.
So you have to really be able to get around the question and ask the same thing to get the same information, but in a completely different way. So it's original. So you have to, give it a different angle where it's not, for example, with those type of questions that are kind of, different, because when they win, everyone's happy, everyone's smiling, everybody wants to talk to you, how they won, oh yeah, I did this, I did that, all of that. But when they lose, it's kind of different. You have to be more careful, and that's when you have to really think it through and how you're going to say, how you're going to portray your question. You don't want to get the same answer that everybody gets. It's just like sometimes that it's very repetitive. It's like, well, man, we did what we had to do. It wasn't the result that we wanted, and that's it. And you're like, okay, thank you for answering me, but that's not, how can I just expand that, right? So you really have to, go through like the question, if it makes sense, for them to get to see it in a different, to hear in a different angle, for them to give you at least some kind of a different answer for you to work with that. So definitely, that would definitely help you shape your questions in the future.
And then you had another complete change of pace, but now in another role as a copywriter, it didn't really have much to do with sports or like what you were trying to do, like radio or as a reporter. But why did you like? What was the backstory behind choosing that role? Was it like maybe to develop other skills you wanted to have to be a little bit more versatile? Well, what did that role entail?
Yeah, that was between a period of time what I needed. I was kind of transitioning back to Miami. So I was like, okay, I can't have a 9 to 5 if I'm planning to go back home and I needed to get all of this. So I was like, how can I get a remote job that will allow me to not leave my hobbies and everything behind, but also to help me get, earn some money while I go back to Miami. So I found this and I'm like, okay, I love writing, right? I think I'm good at it. I'm good enough at it. So I think I can make some money off of that. And then being over there, the sports market, as in jobs, is very small. I was in Spain. I was in Valencia, like I said. So they speak Valencia, however you want to say it. So it's like Catalan. So a lot of jobs over there were like specific on that. I'm like, okay, sadly, I do not speak Valenciano, so I can't take on that job, right? So I was like, I need something that would also not be sports related only, but something that also could maybe open a few different doors for me. Like sometimes you can just not focus on just one thing because you might be missing on another things. I took on this job that was, copywriting as well, which is super helpful right now because everything, people think that social media is not copywriting. It
Mhm.
is. Marketing is copywriting. Everything, all of that is just a different, like we're in a completely different era of marketing and social media and all of that, and it's just not putting a random caption and waiting for people to like it. You have to really, learn how to get to people, how to get attention, how to, you know. So I think that role actually helped me because it was a website designing company. So they
Mhm.
design a million different types of websites. So it could be either sports, it could be either fashion, it could be whatever it was. So they were like, okay, I need you to write about this fashion website and I need to, get people to like this fashion website. So even though I'm not very into fashion, I will have to do my research and try to do my copywriting appealing to people that will go to that website. So in that part, I think it was kind of like a challenge that I took on so I could be prepared for everything. It doesn't matter what you need. I'm your girl. I'm ready. So I think that that's what, opened kind of that door for me, and also the copywriting world, that would really, that really helped me push that part of marketing and all of that. Because sometimes you never know when you're gonna need it, especially like if you handle, like I said, social media and all of that. It's really important to know how to portray yourself in all platforms. So I'd say that that would really, that really helped me also get another different point of view.
And now in your current role with Hispanic Sports Media, how's that been? Like, Augie presented it so beautifully, like saying you're able to cover all the teams in Miami, like having all those crazy experiences with Inter Miami, the Miami Heat, like it's crazy. Like what's that's what like a lot of sports fans, probably you when you were younger, didn't imagine you're able to be in those moments. So how's that position been so far?
Well, honestly, it's been like you said, it's crazy. It's insane. Honestly, sometimes I wake up and I still don't believe it, right? Because it actually started so smoothly. Like the opportunity just, I would say, just they literally dropped it on my lap, and they were like, take it or leave it. And because I started also, I came back to Miami. I had needed a few times, like a few months to adjust, to get everything ready, get back on my feet again. And I'm also a big Formula One fan. So at the beginning, I was, I think it was summer, so basketball was out. I think also, well, what was the other thing? Football was out too. So I think it was just baseball and soccer at the moment. And I was like, okay, let me see. And then the Formula One also was like full on, right? So I was like, okay, let me not go crazy, and then let me start with Formula One, which I handle really well. I barely have to do any research because I already know as a fan, I'm always like there watching, so I barely have to read any. So I would just do my own videos, started posting them, just literally just for fun. Like now I wouldn't think of like I would just think maybe something comes up, but it wasn't really my goal. It was just for me to like stay connected to my career at some point. And then Hispanic Sports Media, they saw my content again, and they were like, hey, we like your content, would you like to join us for a podcast? It's like we do this each week for each race, so no pressure, but we would love to have you on the podcast. And I'm like, okay, well, that sounds cool, yes. So I hopped on the podcast with them. I started collaborating with them, started working with them, and then I started also writing articles for them for Formula One. So I was like, okay, I was, like I said, I'm a fan of sports in general, but to actually follow a sport, you have to sit down, watch every game, research, like what's the news, breaking news, all of that. Who's going off right now. You need to have everything on hand. So I think basketball had just recently started, football as well. By then, I think Inter Miami and the MLB season was about to end as well. So I was like, okay, let me and hockey too. That had just started. So I was like, okay, let me sit down, let me do my research, and then let me get full with this sports. Like at the end, Miami loves all these sports. Like people follow the sports here. So you cannot go to a sports bar on a Friday, on a Saturday because it's packed, because it's always either hockey, basketball, football, soccer, like whatever you want, it's on. Slowly started to, fall in love with the sports. I went to my first basketball, football, hockey games the past year. So when you see them live, it's completely different. Like you can watch a sport and you can love to watch it and all that, but when you're there, you actually feel like you're living the moment. So I fell in love with them. I started to go into each Miami Heat game that I could go, for the Dolphins as well, even though the Dolphins do not really do well. But I was lucky enough that every time I would go, they would win. I'm not saying that I'm their lucky charm, but maybe they probably I should start covering the Dolphins this year. I just started, and then they saw my content as well, and then they were like, "Hey, I see that you're covering all the sports. Like you're living in Miami. You're like right there. You're next door." And they're like, would you like an opportunity to go and cover live for us? I'm your girl. Absolutely. Yes. I was scared to death because I had never done anything like it before. I was like, oh my God, how does this work? Like, I know how to sit down and talk smack in my room, but how can I do that when I have Bam Adebayo right in front of me? Like, I wouldn't know how to do that. So I started to go, and like, you're there and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to be back here again. It's very tiring. You're there for long hours, you're sitting there, you're trying to absorb as much information as you can. For example, the Jimmy drama era was exhausting for me because every 30 minutes you would get some new thing that it would completely disregard what you just did. So I was like, oh my God, this man will not give me a break. Like, oh my God, either you stay or you go, please, but just let me live. So that it was, it was just a experience for me. And then right after that, I started getting into Inter Miami as well. And then recently, I got the offer to go to Miami Marlins as well. So yeah, I'm trying to do as much as I can, but it's been all right. That it's just been like a roller coaster, but it has been so fun. I can't even tell you, it's tiring. Yes, I barely get to sleep. Also, yes, but really, really fun. Like I think words are not enough to describe it.
It's just so interesting to hear how all of these like experiences, all of these amazing things that you're doing, especially like in a city of like a cultural city, like I would like to call it, of Miami. It's such amazing to see like all of the things that you're doing, all of the things that you're managing to do it like in a slow, not I'm not saying like in a slow pace, but more of like a your own pace type of thing.
Mhm.
And one of the questions that I really want to ask is, now that I'm noticing more women into the sports industry, which I think it's very important. I do believe it, and I do agree that more women should definitely be more into the sports industry. As a Latina yourself in a competitive and male-dominant field like how it is with sports media, what has your experience been like breaking into like this industry, and how do you approach that?
Well, it honestly so far has been very positive. I think for me, it's been very welcoming. Everyone has been super friendly. Yeah, I've had a really good experience, but I really do notice that it's not enough. Like I sometimes feel alone. Press conferences for the Heat, sometimes, most of the time, I'm the only woman there. I feel like, oh, this is not enough. This should tell me that there's something wrong here, you know? It's breaking, you know. I see more and more women getting into sports, not even getting into sports, but getting the opportunity to being in sports because I know a lot of women that are very like big fans of sports, always have been very passionate. They know their stuff, they know everything. And you know, it's just that having the opportunity to actually show that you're good enough or even better, it's, you know, it's starting to change slowly. But you know, you always and you know, as a Latina as well, being in Miami, you want to represent your community as much as possible, right? Being a woman and being Latina, you want to be, you know, that person that they say, oh my God, if she's there, then I can be there too, you know, because growing up, I would have, you know, loved to also have that role model, which I do have. I have a few women that I follow that are Latinas that work in CNN in Espanol, that work for ESPN. And then you're like, oh my God, wow, that's amazing. Even though, you know, it's 1 in 5, you know, reporters, it's 2 in 10 reporters. So it's, you know, it's still a little low if you think about it, but I think that's a great progress that we're doing right now. We still have to do a lot of work, but I think that we're going in the right direction.
Moving on with that, you've covered so many events and so many sports in Miami. Kind of like with when we talked about off camera with the Inter Miami versus LAFC game, where it was just completely insane and everything. And also like with the Miami Heat versus the Bulls in the play-in, which we'll talk about later in the episode. What's been one of your most like memorable experiences so far with what you covered?
Oof, that's a tough one because I think that each coverage has like its little thing. But I'd say that regarding like energy and the vibe and everything, because honestly, the job is basically the same. You have some highlights here and there, but I think that overall the work that you what the work that you do is just the same. Like you get to the stadium, you walk around, you know, you see everything. I get some content, I do my videos, and then I sit down, start to, you know, start wait to start the game, write my article while I'm watching the game, and then finish up, go to a press conference, see if I can get a few quotes, and then head home after a few hours, right? So, but I'd say that I think that for the Miami Heat, I'd say it would be the second coverage actually, because the first one I was like very, very nervous. And I barely remember that day because I was really nervous. I spent that entire week like not sleeping at all. I was like, "What's wrong with me?" I'm like, I can't even relax while I'm sleeping. And then that night, I think it was one of the games that Keller made not his debut, but I think he made a statement that day. Like he got his career high in points, and the stadium was full. It was just such a vibe. They won by a bunch of points at the end. It was just great. I remember it really clearly because the vibe was just, you know, people were super excited. You can feel that, you know, the vibe, the energy was so high. And also I'd say one of the games with the Orlando Magic that went to overtime, people could not sit down. When I tell you that people were standing the entire overtime because it was such a great game to watch. Like I was about to like flip my laptop and be like, "Come on, let's go!" But I would have been professional me, so I like needed to calm down. It was a great, great night. I think that that was also one of the nights that I remember that were really, they have been good games, but I think the energy for me, seeing like the fans and all of it's just everything combines. The players also feel when the fans are, into it. So it's just they play better, they go off, they get more aggressive. So it's just a great atmosphere to live.
If we look through based on like the different experiences that you've gone through and that you've reported over the time of and course of your career, you've been in broadcast both in English and Spanish. You approach like different sports también, like, and also saying going back to the idea of Miami being a cultural rich city, as I like to call it. Looking back at what you have accomplished so far, what's something, and I think you mentioned this a little bit, but what's something that you're really proud of, either personally or professionally?
I'd say my consistency, because I think if I back then when I started doing videos, if I didn't believe in myself and I wasn't being constant of what I was doing, because to be constant, you have to believe in what you're doing. If you want to be, on time and post and do your content and do whatever you're doing, if it's videos, if it's writing, it's whatever you're doing, you have to believe in what you're doing. And if you believe in what you're doing, then you be constant with it. So I'd say that it's something that really it was a challenge for me before, like being constantly posting, constantly doing content. It is so hard. You guys as content creators as well know how hard it is to be constant, to be on top of things. Like, sometimes you just can't film today. I can't record today. You'll do it tomorrow. It's like, oh, it's too late or it's too early. Like I can do this, blah, blah, blah. So for me to find the space within my schedule and be constantly posting, constantly doing my content, it's something that I can be proud, because thanks to the Valentina a year ago that believed in herself, that it's like, okay, it doesn't matter if it's just my mom that watches this video. I don't care. I like it from another account that I'll make. It doesn't matter. I'll do my content. Doesn't matter what people see, right? Just that took me to where I am today, which, it's not to like pat myself in the back, but it's pretty cool.
Hey, it's really awesome, like I like just to hear you and everything. And if you would have told yourself like a couple years ago or so, like as a child, would Valentina be able to handle like the future? And I'd say yes, she does. Yes, she can. Why? Because of look all the experiences that she's gone through, look at everything that she's accomplishing, and look at everything that she's covering. It all matches into one. So, ladies and gentlemen, continuing on to the episode here on the next chapter of sports, Val, we're still gonna continue more with soccer world, NBA, NFL, and so much more. Honestly, I am so sorry because you guys are Madrid fans, and I'm sorry, Francisco, también que you guys were eliminated in the Champions League.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I know, Vali, you were really surprised about those Declan Rice free kicks. I was super surprised. I didn't even know that he had that in him. I don't know if Beckham saw from where he's at, like how good he scored those. Like I even thought of Luis Chavez from the selección, like it was crazy. And then we tried in that second leg, but you just saw Arsenal dominated us. I just don't feel like we're a good team anymore.
Okay, like Augie said, I'm a Real Madrid fan, right? But you have to also see it from a middle ground point of view, right? I'd say that for Real Madrid, definitely expectations, disappointed a lot, because, the level of a team like Real Madrid, you expect them to win all the time or to either fight for it till the end, right? If you lose, it's better to lose at 3-2. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I fought until the end. They probably scored a goal last minute. There's nothing you can do. Somebody has to win at the end, right? And there's no perfect team. That the perfect team does not exist. I'd say that Real Madrid right now, it's going through sort of a transition time, because we had Toni Kroos leave, right, at last year. So he's basically an architect in the middle of the field. So without that very important piece that Toni Kroos was to Real Madrid, you can see definitely the change in how it has impacted the team. Definitely no excuse for what has happened this season. I'll say that this season has been a big yikes, if you ask me to say in sort of way. Also, to bring Mbappe to the team, I personally think, I've said it and I'm going to say it again, kind of unnecessary. I think that Real Madrid was fine without him. I think that at this point, when they brought Mbappe, was just to, be like fulfill kind of like a tantrum that Florentino Perez had. Maybe that first time that, they wanted to bring him, it would have been interesting, because they're like, oh my God, the trade of the year, right? But then I saw him that he was kind of like, no, I'm gonna stay in PSG because I'm the star of PSG, and I want to keep being the star. Like I don't want to be in a team of stars if I'm the only star here at this team. that's kind of how I see him. I might be wrong. This is my perception. In no way, I'm saying this because people kind of overreact when I say this. In no way I'm saying he's a bad player at all. Where he is because of his talent. There's no denying that. But I'd say that being just incredibly talented does not mean you're gonna win because you need harmony within a team.
So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit, you guys, and we're gonna move on with the Chicago Fire versus the Inter Miami game. What a game that I saw when it was on, a 0-0 competitive game. A lot of people expected for a very different like outcome. People were gonna say like, oh, it was gonna be boring and all of that, oh, because of the Messi hype and everything. But let me tell you, both teams had their chances, and I saw part of the game. Both teams had their chances, just that Messi hit the crossbar twice. And I was like, oh my goodness. Both sides had it competitively, 0-0, unfortunately. But I feel like that this game was completely over the top.
Yeah, that's the Messi effect for you. I think Vod can attest to that. Since he's gotten to MLS, he's been breaking records not only in goals but also in attendance. He broke the Chicago Fire attendance franchise
Mhm.
record for the most attendance in a game. I can bet that every fan didn't go to see Chicago Fire players; they went to see Messi. Like it was crazy. And yeah, I also got to see a little bit of the game, and yeah, it was crazy. Like how finally being able to see Messi play at Soldier Field after so long from injuries or not being able to go to a game. But yeah, it's just crazy. I know Val can attest to the Messi effect, and I know you've seen it in full effect.
Yeah, no, definitely. When you go to the stadium, the first thing that you hear is Messi, Messi, just chanting until he comes up to the field. And when he doesn't play, people get mad. People get really upset when he's not playing because and if he's on the bench, then people will just chant his name until he's put on the pitch. It is definitely something worth noting because right before I left for Spain, the Inter Miami was kind of a concept. It wasn't still a team, and I saw David Beckham. I went to a lot of like how do you say como concentraciones, like people, they would say like, oh, pop here and there, we were doing this and this and that, and then David Beckham would just pop up around Miami,
Mhm.
and you would see these vans with their Miami logo, and they would give merch and all of that. I have like a few like t-shirts, I have stickers, I have, you name it, I have it. I remember like that's how you see that David Beckham knew what he was talking about. It's completely different to see an investor that just wants to buy a club and make it big and make it huge and make a lot of money. You see the passion in David Beckham when he would say like, I promise you, I'm gonna bring you the stars that you want to see here. Like I'm gonna bring Europe to Miami, and you guys are gonna see that. Like he was like, I want you to know how big soccer is in Europe, and I want you to see how great it is while you live here.
Moving on just quickly, ladies and gentlemen, with the NBA for sure, the play-in that happened. We're already in the playoffs. The Bulls versus the Heat in the play-in. Great, great game. I don't even know where this came from the Miami Heat. I don't even know how they managed to beat the Bulls, honestly, because after so many seasons, 3 straight seasons, honestly, with you guys, 3 straight seasons that they have met in the play-in. And Tyler Hero went off with 38 points. That is insane. That is ridiculous, but in a positive way. That is amazing to see. Like, I never would have thought, looking at it really, really deeply, I never would have thought that Miami would have beaten Chicago. Francisco, I think the Bulls at this point, I don't even know what to tell you, honestly.
Yeah, it's crazy. And they were saying that it's crazy how, like, again, I don't know if it was the coach or a general manager talking about like how like their thoughts on the Bulls, saying that it's still a rebuilding stage. Like you said, we're already 3 seasons in, and like how we're again in playing, and they're still saying it's a rebuilding stage. Like it's crazy how they're still talking about rebuilding throughout the game. Like Kobe White and Vucevic had strong performances, but it still wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for their standards, and it wasn't enough for the team standards, and it's just crazy. Like I don't know your thoughts on it, Val. Like, did you think it was more of a dominant game for Miami Heat?
It was surprising because the odds were against Miami Heat. Like if you see the stats, Miami Heat had lost the past 3 games against the Bulls. So I was like, yikes! If they're gonna play over there in Chicago, then we're done. Because you just look at the stats and you're like, okay, like maybe it's gonna be a tough game. Maybe they can, put up a fight with Chicago, but that it doesn't look good for the Miami Heat. And then all of a sudden, they just got their stuff together and they just went off from the first minute. Honestly, they needed what they regrouped. They, had just one mission and they just went for it. They said like, okay, either this or we go home. And after a season that has been very complicated for the Miami Heat for a variety of reasons, I'd say that this is what, as a Miami Heat fan or a follower of the Miami, you would want to see, right? Because it's a team that has talent that, has definitely on paper, you have everything to win. Even though, I'd say that after Jimmy Butler left the Miami Heat, I'd say that even though Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo have been doing an amazing job leading this team, because that task, that homework just dropped on them. They just from one day to another, they just had to take care of this team. And I think that mid-season that this happened, I think they did a good job. There are some things that I would say, like having a 10 losing streak, that speaks a lot of how you're handling things, how you're refusing to change some things, because that is just unacceptable. And for them, after a 10 losing streak, to make it to the playoffs, that's just hands down for me. This is my season. Like I'm just, they completely surpassed my expectations against Chicago. I really thought that the Bulls were gonna, take the win again and be like, I'm sorry that this is our year now. They actually played way better in the first few games before that playing game. So that's why I was like, okay, you already started the game and you have the odds completely against you. I'd say that if you do have a good roster, then try to make it, as prepared as possible for these type of games, because sometimes teams like Miami Heat can surprise you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached to the final part of the episode. I'm sorry we're not going to get to every single topic or everything like that, but as you know, we're very open here in the next chapter of sports to every single topic of whatever your choice is. And for this final reflection, everybody, Francisco and I want to focus on Formula One because Val is a big Formula One person. I just want to say, like, Formula One is like a sport that's filled with like high intensity, pressure, precision, passion, and all that. Those three P's pretty much: the pressure, the precision, and the passion. And Val, something about Formula One just is amazing. I don't even know for what, but like it's amazing. Like with storytelling and with journalism and a reporting style, is there something around the world of Formula One that inspires you, or that keeps you motivated as an actual journalist?
I would say that as a journalist, I'm gonna be very honest with you. To keep up with Formula One, I'd say it's a little bit easier than other sports, because in Formula One you have 20 drivers, you
Mm.
have 10 teams, and that's all the focus that you're gonna have, right? It's less information. You get to explore a little bit more for each of them. So I'd say that you don't have to cover, for sports like, like basketball, like, yeah, how many players, how many teams are big, there are so many great players that you have to keep tabs on. And I'd say for Formula One, as a journalist, you only have 20, like I said, 20 drivers, 10 teams, and you get to focus on them completely, like without getting a little bit of outside noise, right? Because it's only them. And if one is out and one is in, then you focus on the one that's in right now. The out is just, that's it. That he's out of the seat. We don't talk about him anymore. I'd say that as a journalist, that's a little bit easier to work with, right? Because the information it's there and you can get to go deeper a little bit with the drivers, with the teams and all of that. I'd say as a journalist, that's a good part, because it's a little bit more dynamic. You kind of change the dynamic, comparing it to other sports. Like I said, in basketball, it's just you and your team. But if you're talented enough, you can maybe carry the team on your back for a little while. So it's very, have a lot of pressure, and you have to be, like, again, very precise, because one little mistake, you're out of the race completely. And then every single a person that worked on that car, that coached you, that, everything just goes out of the window. Because if you don't finish a race, if you finish out of the points, like if you finish down to 11, you don't get any points. So it's worth nothing. Basically, all this effort, all this preparation and all that, it's worth nothing. There's a lot of pressure. It's very competitive as well. So Formula One, that's why it's very interesting, because you're either good or you're better. There's no in between.
Yeah, I think like Formula One, like you were saying, Og, it's a crazy environment. Like the precision, the passion that you need to have. And for me, like I think that also in my like as a journalist, it's like crazy like the passion you have to put into it. Like always like in being those situations. And like in my case and other people's cases as well, you really have to be in those moments and really live them. Like in all the moments that Val has been able to live, like you really have to be in the moment and experience it. And I think that's what you really have to do in Formula One as well.
That's exactly how we see it. When one thing is racing, another thing is storytelling. You should never, ever be afraid to do anything because it could get to some instances where Formula One and racing in particular can get dangerous because we have seen how these drivers risk their lives and everything like that. You just have to think about like all the risk and everything like that that these amazing drivers put their lives into, and you just never know what's gonna happen from there. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge thank you to Val Ricci for coming on to the episode of the next chapter of sports. Val, how did you feel to be on our episode?
Oh, I feel amazing, guys. Thank you so much for the invite. I had a great time. But thank you guys so much. I really had a great time. And, it's always a good time to talk about sports. So it was really fun. Thank you guys so, so, so much.
So, así que para mis hermanos latinos ya lo saben perfectamente, venezolana la vino tinto para toda la vida, papá. Así que ya lo saben, aquí con Francisco, estamos aquí en el próximo capítulo de deportes trayendo toda la información y trayendo toda la cobertura durante todo el mundo de deportes.
Yeah, por supuesto, you're so right. We have a Venezolana, we have two Mexicanos here. Well, Agui goes for the U.S. and national team, but we'll put that for another day. But two Mexicanos here and Venezolana there. What more can you ask for? But yeah, an incredible episode. Next chapter of sports. It's great to always be here.
We'll stick around with Val for just a little bit because I know with like time constraints y todo, pero saben que aquí vamos a estar. Así que thank you guys so much for tuning in to the next chapter of sports on this episode 27. And remember everyone that the next chapter of sports will live on today, tomorrow, and forever. Y para mis hermanos latinos ya lo saben perfectamente. Y recuerden que el próximo capítulo de deporte seguirá hoy, mañana y siempre. Thank you guys so much. We will see you guys next time here on the next chapter of sports podcast.
Lo vemos.